This January 1st marks 62 years since the triumph of the Cuban Revolution, as the country prepares for a major transformation of its economy. Peruvian President Francisco Sagasti has convened a forum to reach a national agreement in the midst of the crisis resulting from the police killing of 2 protesting agricultural sector workers. India has now seen a month of protests against 3 new agricultural laws, with thousands mobilised to call for their withdrawal. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, and I'm Katrina Goss. This January 1st marks 62 years since the triumph of the Cuban Revolution led by Fidel Castro, which overthrew dictator Fulgencio Batista. The revolutionary movement transformed the relations of submission to the United States and developed models of free health and education, which have not only benefited Cuba, but much of the world, as the country has shared its experiences and personnel with many others as part of its internationalist principles of solidarity and a relentless struggle against injustice. In the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, Cuba continues to show this same solidarity with other nations, sending medical missions to assist the fight against this new enemy. And despite the inhumane sanctions imposed by the United States government, the Cuban Revolution stands fast as its scientific efforts continue in the development of vaccines and drugs to defeat the novel coronavirus. And this January 1st also marks day 0 for Cuba in the major restructuring process of its economy, as its dual currency system is gradually eliminated and wages increase 5-fold. The plan promoted by the Cuban government will mean the unification of current exchange rates, an end to the circulation of the Cuban convertible peso, and the implementation of a comprehensive reform of salaries and prices with the gradual elimination of excessive subsidies. The process, defined by the authorities as interdisciplinary and cross-cutting, seeks to resolve macroeconomic imbalances, reduce deficits, encourage production, and improve efficiency and competitiveness at the international level. And the president of Cuba's Biotechnology and Pharmaceutical Industries Group, Eduardo Martinez, offered an interview on the challenges faced by the industry in 2021 and the progress made in the development of 4 Cuban vaccine candidates against COVID-19.
Right now, we have 4 vaccines in clinical trials, which does not mean we are not working on other vaccine candidates, as we have said before, and as is being demonstrated now with the emergence of new variants of the virus. We must be prepared for the possibility that the current vaccines we are working on do not protect against the new strains of the virus. We must have the capacity to include new antigens in the vaccine, and we are working on that. We believe that by the end of the first quarter, we could be ready to vaccinate using an emergency badge, as has been done in other countries, where once the regulatory authority results are presented, we are hoping to have an emergency badge ready to begin vaccinating all the at-risk personnel, that is, our doctors who are in the front line, the entire health staff in general, and the entire country. A country where tourism is an important activity, so we also plan to vaccinate all airport staff and staff working at hotels. This would provide confidence for tourists, as the people they will interact with will be protected.
The high priest of the Afro-Cuban religion, known as Santeria, revealed a group of predictions known as the Letter of the Year in the early hours of this January 1st, which many Cubans consider to contain important advice for the year ahead. In their annual prophecy, the priests, known as Babalaos, announced that 2020 would be under the divinity of one of the most respected and mysterious deities of Santeria, Olokun, accompanied by Oshun, the goddess of love and fertility. Among the events of interest, the priests prophesize an increase in natural disasters, migratory flows, and the incompliance with and cancelling of treaties. They also recommend maintaining the existing hygienic and sanitary measures, undergoing periodic medical checkups, and maintaining respect within marriage to avoid breakups, while calling on the family to instill respect, education, and a love for work. This Thursday, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro evaluated the measures implemented for the prevention of COVID-19. During his traditional end-of-year speech, the president stated that the model applied by his administration has allowed the country to maintain low rates of infection and deaths, while the national vaccination process is scheduled to begin in the first quarter of the year.
With Venezuela's 7+7 model, the use of innovative methods to consult millions of our compatriots through the national Homeland ID card system, we achieved the social, and health balance, which allowed us to remain among the countries with the lowest mortality rates in the world at less than 1% per 100,000 inhabitants, and with the highest recovery rates, which today are around 96%. The first pandemic of the 21st century has been swift and deadly for an interconnected world, saturated with technology that has been arming itself with sophisticated weapons, which could easily destroy the entire planet and which are of little use today against the enemy. This wild, tiny, imperceptible threat that continues to wreak havoc on our health.
In Chile, human rights organisations, together with relatives of those detained in the widespread social unrest of 2019, are demanding the approval of the General Pardon Bill. A group of people approached the courts of justice, accompanied by lawmaker Boris Barrera, to demand the approval of the General Pardon Project presented by 5 opposition senators. According to the Public Prosecutor's Office, 5,084 people were arrested in the anti-government protests of 2019. Of these, 648 are still in pre-trial detention, and 725 have been convicted mainly for disorderly conduct, theft or damage to property. The senators who presented the pardon bill stressed that the large-scale arrests and prosecutions represent the criminalisation of the right to protest. Most of the young people detained have now spent more than a year in prison and saw out 2020 behind bars.
Various human rights organizations and groups of family members of political prisoners have gathered here to demand the approval of the General Pardon Law now. We believe that a political solution is necessary, and we believe that it is necessary that all our relatives are in the streets today, because we cannot speak of a constituent process when we still have political prisoners in Chile. We cannot speak constituent process when human rights continue to be violated in Chile. And fundamentally, we cannot continue and rebuild the social fabric and continue to advance as a society without our relatives being released already. I am here in solidarity with this just demand, also committed to the process, to fight with all we have until the bill is submitted to the Chamber of Deputies in order to end this injustice of having the protagonists of this constituent process in jail.
Peruvian President Francisco Sagasti has called for a national agreement in the midst of the crisis resulting from the violent police repression of protesting agricultural sector workers, which resulted in the deaths of 2 people. The decision to convene a forum to draw up a national agreement based on discussions regarding the future of the agricultural sector and other measures was announced by President Sagasti as agricultural workers continue to mobilise and block the Pan American Highway to protest the legislation recently passed by lawmakers, which they stress only benefits big agricultural export companies and fails to meet their demands for better wages and working conditions. In addition, they've also demanded the release of those arrested during clashes with the police. It is expected that the academic sector and different political parties will participate in the announced talks. And the Peruvian Interior Minister announced his dismissal of the regional police chief following the deaths of protesters.
It has already been decided to remove the Trujillo regional police chief. He will be replaced today, and the future of some other officers who have been leading the operations will be defined, which is precisely the proposal of this commission that will undertake this task of investigating whether each individual has fulfilled their obligations in carrying out the operation.
Human rights organisations have denounced the ongoing violence against environmental activists and indigenous and rural community leaders in Honduras throughout 2020. We have more details in the following report.
The indigenous people's land defender and environmentalist Félix Vázquez has sparked increased concern among activists in Honduras, especially in La Paz department, where there is an ongoing territorial dispute.
We are 2 people who have defended the fundamental rights to territory and land, and they have also persecuted us, bringing in people to kill us.
The year 2020 has been violent for leaders of communities where the conflict is confused on hydroelectric and mining concessions without consultation with the population.
By this time last year, about 30% of the cases have been closed without an investigation, and about 20% of the cases have been investigated. The rest were in the process, which means that this persecutor's office to protect human rights defenders has no interest in investigating these cases.
Meanwhile, nearly 20 land defenders remain in prison as a result of new law that extend penalties for those who organize protests or occupations in the dispute territories.
Who suffer from this type of sanction, which is included in the penal code, are comrades who make a claim for the land, who make a claim in defense of the land, who make a claim for the defense of the environment.
Honduras has a prosecutor office to protect human rights defenders, but there are not investigations to punish the aggressor of land protection organizations.
There are over 7,000 rural workers being persecuted nationwide, and without doubt that number will increase. The situation is alarming. We have 8 comrades from Guapinol in prison who cannot freely defend themselves, and 4 from the community are missing.
Of the total number of people criminalized, 20% are indigenous and rural women. According to complaints from human rights organizations, the Public Prosecutor Office has only progressed with 20% of investigations into assassination and attacks on environmental and social leaders.
TeleSUR Honduras.
Medical personnel continue to be vaccinated against the coronavirus in Mexico after the country received a new shipment of vaccines. In addition, authorities reported on a new Phase 3 clinical trial to test another vaccine to fight the pandemic. Our correspondent Eduardo Martinez has the details.
Doctors, nurses, logistics personnel, and others related to the health emergency were summoned to be vaccinated against the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which is responsible for COVID-19.
We waited so long for this vaccine and it finally arrived. And when they told us that we have to mobilize, we have to do it because of the condition of the vaccine. But I am happy because I am one of the first social workers who could come.
The vaccines administered in these and 4 other military installations are part of the second lot of doses developed by the United States company Pfizer and German firm BioNTech, which sent 42,900 doses to Mexico. Those being vaccinated must have been previously registered.
It is a strong feeling. We have seen many people die. Young people, adults, many colleagues have fallen ill. A colleague, for example, his uncle and grandfather are hospitalized in other hospitals. And yes, it is a relief, because we live with our families, and there is always the fear of infecting them.
The first step is to pass through a sanitary checkpoint, where temperatures are taken and people disinfect their hands. Next, they go to the registration section to enter the area designated for the administration of the vaccine. The first people to be vaccinated spoke to us about what it means to have this protection.
The process is conducted through coordination with hospitals. The hospital's coordination department sends the register to the district, and the authorities obviously draw up the list of those who will attend for the application of the vaccine today.
According to the Health Department's National Vaccination Plan against COVID-19, those who are being vaccinated now are on the front line of care for patients infected with the coronavirus.
And then it's very exasperating to go out onto the street and see so much traffic and so many people shopping and meeting each other. It makes me very angry to see us losing the possibility of caring for our families and taking care of people we don't know and who are thoughtless and are not at home.
While health authorities decreed places like the capital of the country and its metropolitan area as red zones and closed non-essential activities, mobility continues to be high, and gatherings for Christmas and New Year must be added to this. In the coming weeks, we will learn just how responsible Mexicans were in complying with the call to only gather with relatives who live in the same house.
Eduardo Martinez, TeleSUR, Ciudad de México.
The start of the new year marked the end of the so-called transition period after the United Kingdom's departure from the European Union 11 months ago, representing the biggest single economic change the country has experienced since World War II.
Disaster among many disasters this year. Yeah, it's a crappy deal, and yeah, don't really see any positives in it, to be honest.
I think this is a problem. It is a problem for United Kingdom, Great Britain economy, because the delivery of the goods from Europe maybe something restrictions, something. I think that's a problem because delivery is not so good. Can go to the United Kingdom.
In India, farm workers have now been mobilised for a month to protest three new agricultural sector laws promoted by the government. During the past 30 days, agricultural workers have marched to the capital, New Delhi, blocking major highways into and out of the city. The peaceful protests have been met with repression by security forces. The protesters are demanding the withdrawal of the reforms, which they stress threaten the country's food sovereignty as well as their livelihoods. Union and sector representatives are currently participating in the sixth round of talks with the government to seek a solution to the ongoing dispute. The United Nations African Union peacekeeping mission in Darfur drew to an end on Thursday after 13 years stationed in the vast Sudanese region. Fighting erupted in Darfur in 2003 when ethnic minority rebels rose up against the Arab-dominated government in Khartoum, which responded by recruiting and aiming a notorious militia known as the Janjaweed. A total of 300,000 people were killed and 2.5 million displaced, according to the United Nations. The mission said the Sudanese government will take over responsibility for the protection of civilians in the area following the withdrawal of peacekeeping forces. Darfur's bitter conflict has largely subsided in recent years, and longtime ruler Omar al-Bashir, who is wanted by the International Criminal Court for genocide and other alleged crimes in the western region, was ousted in a coup in 2018. However, the country's transitional government is said to be fragile, and ethnic and tribal clashes still flare up at times.
The last day for UNAMID is tonight at midnight. From January the 1st, UNAMID will not have any protection mandate. It will finish on the midnight of December 31st, 2020. There is a timetable, there is a schedule for the departure of different troops. The civilians will not have much to do. Until now, there is no full and comprehensive peace in Sudan, and for that reason, we are rejecting the departure of the UNAMID mission. For the UNAMID mission to leave, there should be full and comprehensive peace for all the Sudanese people, disarming the Janjaweed militias, and to try anyone who committed a crime in Sudan.
This Thursday marked 1 year since the World Health Organization was first alerted of an atypical case of pneumonia, which was later named COVID-19. Over the past 12 months, the virus has reached all corners of the world, infecting over 82 million people and causing 1.8 million deaths. The pandemic sparked an unprecedented paralysis of normal life for much of the world, with the fight to contain the spread of the virus ongoing. In record time and thanks to huge scientific efforts, several countries have started distributing and administering COVID-19 vaccines. This Wednesday, Bolivia signed an agreement to acquire over 5 million doses of Russia's Sputnik vaccine. Meanwhile, the United Kingdom and Argentina became the first countries to give the green light to the vaccine produced by the Swedish-British pharmaceutical company AstraZeneca and the University of Oxford, which can be kept at temperatures between 2 and 8 degrees Celsius, making it easier to transport and store, which could facilitate vaccination on a larger scale than the Pfizer-BioNTech shot, which is already being used in several countries. An ambitious goal of vaccinating 1 million New York City residents with a COVID-19 vaccine in January was announced this Thursday by Mayor Bill de Blasio, who noted that meeting the target would require outside cooperation.
The month of January 2021, we will vaccinate 1 million New Yorkers. 1 million people we will reach in January. This city can do it. The amazing healthcare professionals of this city are ready. We're going to set up new sites all over the city on top of the many, many sites that are already operational. We're going to expand from our hospitals and our clinics to community clinics to locations we'll set up all over the neighborhoods of the city. Our goal is to get to upwards of 250 locations citywide. This is going to be a massive effort. This is going to be part of the largest single vaccination effort in the history of New York City.
China has granted conditional market approval to a Sinopharm vaccine with a reported 79% efficacy rate against COVID-19, representing another major stride towards inoculating the world's largest population.
The National Medical Products Administration has approved the application for the registration of Sinopharm's inactivated vaccine on December 30. That is, yesterday afternoon, to be exact, last night, in accordance with the law and conditions, which is commonly referred to as conditional listing. I am convinced, and please be convinced, that the production capacity of COVID-19 vaccines can meet the demand of large-scale vaccination we have in China. One of the big prerequisites is definitely to make it free for everyone. That's a big prerequisite. After a series of strict review, verification, test, and data analysis in accordance with the law and procedures, it is concluded that the known and potential benefits of Sinopharm's new inactivated coronavirus vaccine are bigger than the known and potential risks, and it fully meets the preset requirements of conditional marketing standards.
And we've come to the end of this news brief, but remember you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Katrina Goss, and thank you for watching.